Hey everyone, thanks again for tuning into Sin's Workshop. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. Okay, so trick here. We're going to be talking about These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. Okay, I literally just finished this book. I had to finish it. Mainly because of deadlines. No, secondly, that's the second. I had to finish this book because I loved it. I really wish I'd had more time to read it at work yesterday, but sadly, the job does get away. But I did finish reading it literally like an hour ago, and I loved it. This is a retelling of Romeo and Juliet. It is set in 1920s Shanghai, 1926 to be specific. This is the second Romeo and Juliet retelling I've read this year. Both very different, so there's no use in comparing them. But I will say, I think I like this one more because the other one was more high fantasy with steampunk. This one is more, does have a fantastical element to it, but I think it is more relatable and realistic. It definitely grounds the reader much more because it does take place in a place you can vividly imagine without very little detail on the author's part. Not to saying she doesn't use detail. She actually uses detail very beautifully in her storytelling, and I really did enjoy that. God, I wish I'd had sticky notes and I was reading this so I could just like put in so I could tell you some of my favorite parts of it. That ending though. Okay. Oh, what then? Okay, never mind. Sorry. I just thought of something that happened in the book, and it was a direct reference to Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, and I thought that was very, very clever on the author's part. I did love this book. I did think it was really good. But what I'm trying to say is, it is very different from the other Romeo and Juliet novel that I read earlier this year, but I did find it really engaging because once again, it does take place 1920s. This is a time period that I think we as readers can vividly imagine perfectly. You've got your flapper girls, your gangstas, and it does take place in Shanghai. And I think what leads to that is there's this vibrancy to it. There's also like lots of culture clash. You've got British people, you've got Frenchmen, you've got Russians, and then you've got the Chinese. And it follows Juliet. She is the daughter, heiress to the Scarlet Gang, and then you have Roma Montagov. It's Juliet Kai, yes. And then I just want to pronounce, Montagov. I was pronouncing it right, or as right as I can pronounce it, which is probably not right at all, but whatever. And I think what's really interesting and why this novel also is set apart, they are older than your traditional Romeo and Juliet personalities. They're definitely not 16. When they first meet in the novel, they are 14, 15. Now they are 18, 19 respectively. And they are alive 4 years after their first meeting, which I think is really interesting. You have this step back from that traditional retelling of star-crossed lovers. And I love the title. I love how the title is a direct reference to Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. But these violent delights meet violent ends. I think that's a line everyone knows. But anyway, I think it was very clever on the author's part to sort of take the story of Romeo and Juliet and really just take it, and she ran with it. And I do like that. She took her own unique spin on the story, and it is different. It really is different. The fact that they've known each other for 4 years, and they have um, sort of a hatred of each other. There's a lot that has happened. They were in love, and then rival gangs, lots of hatred. She's sent off to America for years. She comes back now that she's graduated. So it's very different. It is not traditional, and I appreciate that. I like how it's not traditional, but I do like that it still is, at its core, a story about Romeo and Juliet. It does step back from, that traditional storytelling that does border on cliche nowadays, I would have to say. So I like things that are different. I do love retellings, but I like when they're different in a way. I don't want to read the same story just done over and over and over again. It's like with these Disney movies. I don't need to see the exact same story in live action form. I think that's why I really like Cinderella, because it's different. It's still Cinderella, but it's different. And Maleficent, they're different. I think we know where I stand on Disney remakes. So I like it when things are different. Oh, and reboots, remakes. I hate remakes when they're just like The Omen. Oh my god, if you're just gonna redo The Omen, just remaster the original. I don't need to see the exact same story redone 1,000 times. I don't. It's one of my pet peeves. Cause it's like I already know the story. So once I do like um how the story is different and not your traditional young adult star-crossed lovers story, because there's a lot of tension with these characters, and I think there's also lots of character growth too. Um, there's so much that happens. There is a monster in Shanghai, and it is infecting people with bugs that kind of drives them cuckoo. And to the point where they end up ripping out their own throats. There's this madness, and Juliet and Roma reluctantly start working together secretly so that their fathers don't find out, to solve the mystery of this mysterious monster. That's where the fantasy comes in. But I do like how there's lots of realism to the story. And I do love how Tybalt and Mercutio, I love how they are also adapted into the story. And I do like how there are references to diversity and representing the LGBTQ community in a really subtle, and yet it is subtle, but it's also very clear to the reader what's happening. I guess it's subtle in the sense of the storytelling. You as the reader, it's clear to you, but for the storytelling, it's a very subtle distinction that I appreciate, especially when you consider the time frame. It is the 1920s. Being transgender and gay, there are a couple famous transgender people from the 1920s, but I feel like it was still a really tough time for the LGBTQ community and for people struggling with their identity and being transgender and being homosexual. And you do get to kind of see that in this novel, and I really like that. Once again, there's lots of realism to the storytelling. There's a lot of grounding factors to ground the reader in the story. It has fantasy in it, but it is more realistic in its storytelling, and I always appreciate a little dash of realism now and again. But I think if you're going to do a story of Romeo and Juliet, there should be some semblance of realism in the story. I read another one earlier this year, high fantasy, steampunk, and I really did enjoy it. And that one did also stray away from that traditional retelling, which I appreciated. But I think I was able to lose myself more in these violent delights because of that realistic factor and because of the time period. We think 1920s, again, flapper girls and gangsters. We think, yeah, Bonnie and Clyde. I'm more of a 1950s clothing kind of gal. but I think I would be in 1950s clothing and living like a gangsta in the 1920s. um, and so we're all just kind of, there is a sort of romanticism on what it's like to be a gangster. And I mean, just think Boardwalk Empire, which I have to finish, and I haven't finished it yet, but that was key for me. Um, and you know, I like how it takes place not in America and it takes place in Shanghai because there is lots of vibrancy in the background of the story. You know, lots of uh, textiles regarding clothing, lots of burlesque. You know, you are seeing something new and different from the 1920s. You're not just seeing traditional US history, 1920s. You're seeing what it was like around the world. And I don't think we get a lot of that when it comes to literature. Um, and that's why I like it, because we are seeing a little bit more of the world during this time period. And I enjoyed that. So, really good world building. Lots of distinctions, lots of references to history as well, you know, about the Communist Party in Shanghai. And like I said, lots of realism to the story to make it really engaging, to create a more realistic blend of that fantasy and history into the story. And I really did appreciate that. I liked it. Yeah, I liked it. So this was These Violent Delights. I'm gonna go ahead and give it 4.5 stars. It didn't completely wow me. And I really do hope Book of the Month is going to have the sequel, because I really hate having uneven books, and I already had to do that with my Harbinger series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I've got like a big copy of Storm and Fury, and then I got like the normal size hardcover of Rage and Ruin. So my bookshelf's gonna look weird. But I love my Book of the Month subscription, um, because I mean this book is at retail $19.99, and I like to pay $14.99 for my subscription. You know, definitely helps me save a couple bucks, because lots of I've got books over here. I got books in my closet over there. I got books in my dresser over here. That cabinet right there behind me, all full of books, and this all full of books. And I have like boxes downstairs full of books, and I have 2 IKEA 6-shelf double-doored bookcases full of books. So, lots of books. I'm not gonna stop buying books. My husband says I should, and then I smack him with a book, and I'm like, take that back. And he does. He does. He's like, okay. He's like, one day I'll get you a house with a library. And I'm like, yay! It's good to dream. It's nice to dream. But anyway, you know, These Violent Delights, I'm going to go ahead and give it 4.5 stars. I definitely recommend purchasing this book if you are a huge fan of retellings that have a different take. And if you're a 1920s fan, Romeo and Juliet fan, a fan of star crossovers, this is the book for you. Definitely 4.5 stars. I will include a link to purchase the book on bookshop.org. If you are someone who has a Book of the Month subscription, please use one of your extra credits, if you have one, as an add-on. Get it as an add-on while it's still available in Book of the Month. And if money's tight, which I get it, hence why I use Book of the Month subscription. It's a good deal. If money is tight for you, I recommend checking out the book from your local library. And on that note, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Please don't forget to support Sin's workshop by liking this video, subscribing to my channel, and sharing it with all your book-loving friends. Happy reading, everyone!